Ari and Maishi. It's very meaningful that you're here. You really started all of this, that's the truth. Yitz and Avishai are really just kind of swooping in and taking the credit for what Maishi and Ari actually started.
All day, every day.
Thank you to Noach Blechner for all the very, very hard work. And also, should be mentioned, thank you to Yitzi Weiss for allowing us to house Avodah Salev's Medrash. I want to welcome Rebbe Bender, who is joining the Avodah Salev family, and we'll share a little bit later tonight. Meretz Hashem, I'll share some words of chizuk with us. I want to just share a few thoughts that I've been thinking about. It's interesting. Every year we go through the same calendar cycle, but one of the things that I personally enjoy so much about, as Eitan spoke about, the ol, the weight, but the beautiful weight of Yiddishkeit, is how we go through the same thing every year, but very often there's a different experience, a different feel, a different flavor, a different energy, even to the same yontif. I remember last year, Elul came around, and I felt like I had nothing. I had nothing left in the tank. Like Elul came, but I was completely burnt out, and my feeling was, how am I supposed to do Elul? How do I get energized now for tshuva? This is supposed to be the time to strengthen to myself, to get going, to step it up, but I felt like I was completely depleted. And maybe it was me projecting onto everybody else, but when I looked around and when I spoke to people, that's what it felt like for everyone around me last year. And the avoda last year was to find that feeling of depletion was the door to tshuva, because that's always how it is. Whatever Hashem sends to us is not the obstacle, it's the entry point. So last year, my avoda of Elul was to figure out how feeling like I had nothing was exactly what I needed in order to do tshuva. This year, for whatever reason, I feel the exact opposite. And when I look around, that's the feeling I get from the chevra, from the energy around me. It feels like everyone's ready to go. It feels like, if I could say it bluntly, it feels like most of us are caught up in a lot of stupidity, but we're at a point where we're starting to realize that. We're at a point where we're starting to get sick of it. It's like Bnei Yisrael with the slub. It's like so much meat already that it's coming out of their nose and their ears, and it's like they're sick of it already. It's like we're drowning in so much stupidity, but we're at the point where we're starting to realize and feel like, I want something different. It feels like we're ready to step up. We're ready to do something different. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to do what the Rambam says. The Rambam says in Hilchos Tshuva in the very beginning that what the avodah of Elul is about, the avodah of tshuva, he doesn't say it about Elul. It's actually not in Sefer Zmanim, it's in Sefer Hamada. What tshuva is that a person does a chet, a person sins, a bad translation, but we'll go with it, and they want to do tshuva, so they're supposed to say the following: Ana Hashem, please God, Chatasi avisi upashati, Va'asisi kach v'kach, I sinned, I fell, I missed the mark, I stumbled. Asisi kach v'kach, I did whatever it is that I did. Uboshti v'nichlamti mimenu, and I'm embarrassed from it, I'm ashamed from it. I regret, really might be better, I regret it. Ula olam eini chozer l'davar zeh, and forever I'll never return for it. Ula olam eini chozer l'davar zeh, forever I'll never return to this thing. Now, all of that sounds good until those last few words. Ana Hashem, God, Master of the world, I'm crying out to you. Yes, that feels good. Chatasi avisi pashati, I can definitely say that sincerely. Asisi kach v'kach, I did whatever I did, I can definitely say that sincerely. Boshti v'nechlamti mimenu, I regret it, I'm embarrassed from it, I can definitely say that sincerely. And then we get to Ula olam eini chozer l'davar zeh, and I'm never going to forever return to do it again. It's like, how do you say those words? How do you ever say that? And that's the question. If we're taking tshuva seriously, how do we ever say that? So, usually at this point in my speech, I'll insert a Hasidic story of some sort. But I was just away with my kids for a few days, as I mentioned, last week. And instead of learning Hasidus, I was watching Finding Nemo. So this is what I have to offer you. There's an amazing line in Finding Nemo. Mamish, like, this line is godless. Baruch, you know my favorite line from Finding Nemo? He's already nodding, he knows. So, my favorite line from Finding Nemo is that at some point at the end of the movie, for whoever hasn't seen it, essentially a father loses his son, his son, who gets taken by some scuba diver or whatever it is, and it's a search of this father, Marlin, looking for his son, Nemo. And he's accompanied by the comic relief fish, Dory. And Marlin says at one point to Dory, when he thinks that he's never going to find Nemo, he says, I promised him, when he was just a little baby, I promised him that I would never let anything happen to him. And Dory says back, well, that's a funny thing to promise. And Marlin says, why? And Dory says, because if you never let anything happen to him, then nothing would happen to him. I think that conversation happens between the neshama and HaKadosh Baruch Hu when he sends us down into this world. Every Rosh Hashanah, our neshama comes back over in lefanav kivnei maron. We pass before Hashem. We return. Rosh Hashanah is we're returning to the hub. We're returning to the source of our energy. The Alter Rebbe, the Baal Tanya, explains that every year a person is given a certain amount of chiyos, a certain amount of energy. It's lamashal. It's like laser tag. You know, like you get like a certain amount of shots in your gun, and then when you run out, you have to go back to the charging station and put your gun next to the thing, and it gives you another set. So we get a certain amount of ammo for the year. And then Rosh Hashanah is like going back to that station to get refueled. We're out of fuel because we're given fuel for a year. So the neshama is going back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as Rosh Hashanah comes. And the neshama is looking at Hashem saying, why did you send me here? Why did you send me here? You told me that there was a purpose in being sent here. You told me that there was a tachlis, that there was something I'm supposed to be accomplishing here. And maybe I am accomplishing something, but I'm also being dragged into this thing and that thing and this other thing, and I'm being dragged all over the place. You told me it was going to be worth it. And I imagine HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying, but I never promised you that nothing would happen to you, because if I promised you that nothing would happen to you, then nothing would happen to you. What I mean is like this. The Rambam is very specific in his language. And he says something amazing in these words that I said to you before. He says, Ula olam eini chozer l'davar zeh. Now what do we say when we do tshuva? We say, forever I will never return to what I did. I will never return to what I did. He doesn't say, Ula olam eini oseh davar zeh. I will never do this again. What he says is, I will never return to this again. Which means that we can say sincerely in a moment when we're screaming and we're singing Avinu Malkeinu, when we're singing V'nachalav, and we're singing Kikarav, we're singing these incredible songs that inspire and bring us into a place of nevuah. And when we're feeling that, when we're in Shul Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and we're experiencing tshuva, when we're in that state, we can genuinely say, I actually, sincerely, genuinely can say, I don't ever want to do this again. Meaning what I did, I will never return to do. Does that mean I won't do something else? Even if on the surface of it, it looks like the same action? It might happen again. But I will never return to do this again. Because in this moment, I have completely and unequivocally clarified for myself that this is not me, this is not what I want to happen. And if Hashem wasn't okay with that, then he could have never sent us into this world. Because if nothing is allowed to happen to you, then nothing ever happens to you. If something happens, then something happens. We read in this past week's Parsha the mitzvah of Truma. The mitzvah of Truma applies in Eretz Yisrael, a tree that grows in Eretz Yisrael. So it's a very interesting halacha. What happens? What's the halacha if you have a tree that's roots, the trunk of the tree are in Eretz Yisrael, and its branches grow and extend outside of Eretz Yisrael? So whatever grows from the tree, the produce from the tree, is outside Eretz Yisrael. Are there halachos of Truma in that situation? The roots are in Eretz Yisrael, but the fruit are actually from outside of Eretz Yisrael. So what's the halacha? Is it considered a tree in Eretz Yisrael and it has Truma? Or is it considered to be outside of Eretz Yisrael and doesn't have Truma? So the halacha is that we go basar ikro, which means we go based on the roots of the tree, and it's considered to be in Eretz Yisrael. And that tree is chayiv in Truma. But interestingly, take another area of halacha. What's the halacha if you have a tree that is growing outside of a vineyard, and its branches are extending into the vineyard in a way that would be a problem of kilayim, of planting different things together that are not allowed to be planted together, and it's growing in the vineyard in a way that would be kilayim, but the trunk is outside. So what's the halacha then? Is it kilayim because it's growing inside in the kilayim, or is it not kilayim because it's from outside? So if you follow the same halacha, you following me here? If you follow the same halacha that we said by Truma, then what should you say? You should say you go basa, you follow the roots. So it's not kilayim. But yet, when it comes to kilayim, the consensus seems to be that we actually go based on basar nofo. We go based on where the fruit are, and it is kilayim. And I think the resolution to this is that there's a difference between where you're rooted and where the branches extend to at different times. Sometimes our branches extend into a place that, what's kilayim? Kilayim is to get mixed up. Things that are not supposed to be together are getting mixed up. Sometimes the branches can get mixed up in other things, and it's not okay. It's actually an Isser Kilayim. It's not okay. And we have to fix that. We have to figure that out. But when it comes to a question of where are we rooted in Eretz Yisrael? Literally, but meaning also are we rooted in Kedusha? So then the halacha says, you're rooted where you're rooted. And even if the branches extend into somewhere else, that doesn't change the fact that you are planted deeply in a place of Kedusha. And this time is about the roots. It's about planting our roots in the place of Kedusha. That doesn't mean that the kilayim is not a problem. It means that they can both be true at the same time. When we get mixed up in the things that we're not supposed to be mixed up in, it's a problem. What gives us the ability to look at that problem and see that problem and work on that problem is the knowledge that if our roots are in Eretz Yisrael, then our roots are in Eretz Yisrael. And they can both be true. So I'll leave you with a story from the Baal Shem Tov that I think illustrates this point that I saw the other night. There's a story that says, I've mentioned this to you before, I have this sefer called Lava Malka Ima Baal Shem Tov. So I try to look at it every Motzei Shabbos, just a story or two. So I saw this past week, the Baal Shem Tov was traveling somewhere, and there was a man on the side of the street. He was traveling with Hasidim, and there was a man on the side of the street, And he stopped where he was going, he went over to him, spoke to him, he whispered something in his ear, and then he carried on in his way. And the Hasidim figured this person must be someone very special, a hidden tzaddik that we don't know about. So they wanted to figure out who he was, what he was, and they went and they inquired. And they pressed him, as every story goes, and finally he told them what the Baal Shem Tov told him. He told them, I need to tell you a backstory. He said, I have a friend who, his business is he travels somewhere, he sells things, he makes a certain amount of money, he comes back, and so long as the money lasts, he stays at home, and then he goes back out and does this again periodically. So he went out for this, to sell his merchandise, and he came back with a sum of money, and he left it somewhere in his house, and I was in his house, and I saw it, and I thought it was an irresponsible place to leave it. So I decided, maybe it was bad judgment, but I decided for whatever reason that I was going to take the money to scare him a little bit, to realize, like, you got to be a little more careful with your money. I was going to give it back to him, but I just wanted to teach him a lesson. So I took the money, and then a few minutes later, I hear his wife shrieking that someone stole the money. And in that moment, I panicked, and I got so embarrassed that I didn't want to tell anybody that I took the money. Even though I didn't steal it, but I got so embarrassed, I didn't want to tell anybody, so I hid it. And it created a whole scene and a chaos, and everyone's looking for the money, and the more it went on, the more, and we all know how this goes, right? You do something, and then if you don't fess up right away, then it gets buried even more, and it gets buried even more, and buried even, so the longer it went on, the less likely I was to say the truth of what happened. And I'm still holding on to the money, and they're all still wondering who stole it. And I can't come clean. And the Baal Shem Tov came over to me as he was passing by, and he whispered in my ear, he said, I know that you didn't mean to steal it. I know that you took it innocently. You should go back and tell them what happened and give them the money. And if anybody comes to take you to task saying that you actually meant to steal it, I'll come and I'll testify on your behalf. I promise you, I'll make you a promise that I will come and stand up for you. That everyone will know that you didn't do it on purpose. And that you didn't start with any bad intention. And so the man said, when the Baal Shem Tov told me this, I feel like 1,000,000 pounds was lifted off my chest. And my plan is right now to go back and tell them. And I think the point of this story is that most of us are not so willing to look at the things that our branches extend into the Kilayim. Because we're afraid that if we talk about the things that we do, that we fall into, that we've messed up in, the things that we do that are bad, we're afraid that means that we are bad, that people will think we're bad, that we'll think we're bad. What the Baal Shem Tov is saying is, you can go into the place that the branches extend into the Kilayim because I can be made for you. I can testify for you. I can stand for you. That the roots are in Kedusha. That it didn't start there. And this is what all of us need going into this time period. We need the ability to talk about where we have fallen. And what gives us the strength to talk about where we have fallen is the knowledge that someone will stand up and say, wherever they've fallen, it's not where they started. It's not where the roots are. And so often people hear this message and they think it means that now I'm good. But it's the opposite. It's when we know that we're good that we can talk about how bad we are. That's the point. When we know how good we are, we can talk about how bad we are. It's not how good we are and therefore we don't have to talk about how bad we are. And it's not how bad we are and therefore how bad we are. It's when we know how good we are that we can actually talk about how bad we are. That's what the Baal Shem Tov was bringing to this man. And I think that's the avodah of Elul. That we can actually say, La'olam eini chozer l'davar zeh, because I'll never return to this. It'll be a new fall, but I'll never return to this, because that's not actually where my roots are. And Hashem can say, as we come back, Hashem will say, I know where the beginning was. I know where the beginning was. And I know that things were allowed to happen. Because if anything's going to happen, then something's going to happen. And that's what it means to be sent into this world. So the real stepping up of Elul is actually to start talking about all the places that need work. All the things that really aren't the way they're supposed to be. I don't know. Do I spend more time playing pickleball and golf than I do davening? I don't know. How addicted to my phone am I? We're all addicted to our phones. Anyone who's in denial of that is just in denial. We're all addicted to our phones. Right? I don't know. There's a million. Everyone can think to themselves. There's a million things. You know, the Mittler Rebbe said his dream was that when two Jews would see each other in the street, they'd bump into each other, they'd be talking Hasidus. I don't know, most of the time I bump into somebody, I'm curious like what the latest hack was for getting a free car. That's the reality. Like, we need to start being a little bit more okay talking about how pathetic we are in a lot of ways, you know? But we can only do that when we know how good we are. It's not one or the other. Knowing how good you are is what allows you to talk about how bad you are. And when you talk about how bad you are, then you can get better. RA, makes sense? Okay. To have our roots in Eretz Yisrael. Shkach.